curates, an art director curates, somebody curated what was on the wall here.
Oh yeah, mostly me.
Censor is mostly a neutral term. It's just you're looking at something and deeming, is this permissible or is it not in the current situation?
No, I think curation is neutral. Censorship is not neutral.
Well, you can censor something and allow it. So if you censor something, you're just deciding yes or no.
Censure versus censor.
My guy, what are you talking about, man? How in the hell are you going to censor something and allow it? And the thing I like about it is how confident he sounds. You can censor something. No, it's just an act of deciding. Wrong and strong is what we call that.
Well, you can censor something and allow it. So if you censor something, you're just deciding yes or no.
Censure versus censor.
I think when you
So Marianne is actually correct. The word censure is basically like right? We have all these rules of war that people are basically allowed to ignore. So it's kind of a fake thing. Censure in our government, essentially the same thing. So it's like, you've done something that members of Congress disagree with, and they want to give you a verbal sort of reprimand. It's an official statement of, sort of a rebuke. But just like, they mentioned, it's something where you can, well, actually the resident genius there says when you censor someone, you can censor and allow it, right? It doesn't necessarily mean when you censor someone that you disallow it. And she correctly states that is censure, because that is correct. So if AOC says something that members of Congress do not like, they can censure her, right? But she can continue doing the thing that they censured her for, right? Because a censure does not stop you from doing the thing that you're being censured for, right? Censorship, right? Being censored, in that case, you are restricted, right? It is a removal of, right? And we can get more into that in a little bit.
Yes or no.
Censure versus censor.
I think when you censoring is just the act of observing and deciding yes or no.
Censoring is when you...
It's specifically removing information. It can be good or bad.
So it's very interesting that Beanie Man here actually seems to be correct. But yet, I don't know if he lacks confidence in that, because he doesn't really take much authority here. This is his show. He does allow this ridiculous conversation to continue. I think that's the main thing he does, is what he just said right there. But then they continue with the back and forth. And then in the end, you're going to see he's going to come back and say, I was right and you were wrong, whatever. So very, very curious there.
These great works of art. You were talking about the things you were talking about. Many of us are upset about things like To Kill a Mockingbird, Grapes of Wrath.
But we all agree on that.
Okay, and I think we all agree on a lot of stuff, yeah.
But so this is more ambiguous. I'm curious your thoughts on this. It's kind of hard to read. I tried to find a higher resolution.
And for the record, I was right. You were wrong. Censure is official rebuke or an expression of strong disapproval.
Someone.
Yeah, but a censor, CENSOR, is just the act of deciding yes or no. You can say yes, that's okay, but you still censored it. Or you can say no, it's not okay, and you censored it.
Or is it
it's sort of the opposite of what,
So sorry to interrupt.
So this was actually very disappointing. I'm not really sure what happened behind the scenes with this, but she really seemed to be unprepared for this interview. She doesn't seem to really be familiar with these clowns and their tactics. She's also not really talking about she's not talking as much about the things that, she's pushing for in terms of her platform, why you should vote for her. She just allowed herself to be gish-galloped by these clowns, and now they are successfully making her question herself in her understanding of the definition of a very basic word, like censor, which clearly she knows the meaning of it because she was correct. But she allowed this guy, and Tim Pool is a master propagandist, so her being manipulated by him is a little different. But this guy, look at who got the better of Marianne Williamson. And this is the woman who, Tucker Carlson is one of the best propagandists in this country. And I think she did a pretty good job when she went on his show. She really made Jimmy Dore look like the fool that he is, right? The clown that he is, showing that you can go on a right-wing channel, like Fox News, and still have integrity and still, push back against the nonsense and have some value from your being on the show, as opposed to, the value only being to the show themselves, right? They bring you on as a tool to go after their political opponents, right? So you're not really representing your supposed side. You're just there helping the supposed other side, right? That's kind of Ridiculous. So being as Tucker Carlson is really good at what he does, but somehow she was able to get in there and, really push back against the stuff he was talking about. That was amazing. But then she comes on, this little independent media channel with Mr. Beanie Cap and let his co-host do this to her. Wow. Embarrassing.
Say yes, that's okay, but you still censored it. Or you can say no, it's not okay, and you censored
Oh,
it.
I
Or
see
is
what
it a
you're, it's sort of the opposite of what, yeah,
And sorry to interrupt.
no,
Society's taken
think
this.
I understand what you're saying.
Society will try and tell you that it means saying no. It only means saying no, but it's just the act of deciding yes or no.
Is to censor.
Yes.
But by
All right, here we go. This is
definition, if you say no, you are censoring. Yeah.
See, notice two other observations. She definitely sounds very uncomfortable, right? You listen to the tone of her voice, she's stuttering a little bit type of thing. But rewind the video if you need to. Listen to the level of confidence that this guy has, right? Listen to how quickly he responds to her, right? This is not someone who has any doubt at all whatsoever in what they're saying. He is 110% confident that he's correct, right? And perhaps that's because he actually looked it up and confirmed he was correct. The only thing is he's not correct, right? This is how inept this guy is. This is how ridiculous this clown show is, right? Because even if he made a mistake, Tim Pool kind of pushed back really quick. Knows how fast he was talking. He didn't really care to really push back on this. He just slipped that in there, and his whole thing was he wanted to go out and his little gotcha that he has coming up next, right? But this conversation was allowed to go on and on and on and on, and Tim Pool is not shutting it down, right? So he's the host of the show, and he's not saying to his guy no, she's actually correct, right? That's the level of journalism you get from Tim Pool. Right? Censorship is not the only thing a censor does. Putting out fires is not the only thing a fireman does. Arresting people is not the thing that police always do. I think, to make a better analogy, if we refer to police officers as arresters, right? So he's basically saying an arrestor is just deciding whether you're going to arrest someone or not arrest someone. But you can actually engage with someone and decide not to arrest them, but then it's still arresting. I don't think it's the best analogy, but if we stick with the actual stuff that's being talked about, a censor is a person who decides yes or no. But if the censor decides to actually censor, he's deciding no, right? Censor is always when you're deciding no. It's never going to be, if a censor reviews something and decides that this is okay, then he's decided not to censor, right? Because the act of censoring something is, you've decided no. It's always no. So it's not society saying, it's what the word means, right? Consider also that this guy, props to him for actually looking it up. A lot of people will argue with stuff and be so passionate about it and so confident, and then they won't even bother to take 2 seconds to look it up. This guy is so inept that he actually, credit to him, looked it up and still came to the conclusion that he was correct and she's wrong. And if you look at the definition, let's try to see how could he have come to this conclusion. Let's try to understand, the thought process of a guy like this. This is a guy who has the ability to speak to millions of people, right, and potentially inform their decisions, right? Let's examine whether he should be in this position. It's kind of like, imagine if, you got YouTube, right? So anyone can go and start a channel and talk about whatever. Imagine I don't have any experience at all dealing with electrical wiring, right? And I'm just online saying stuff and I don't really understand the stuff I'm talking about, and people are sitting there watching me, and then they're going to go and try to, replicate what I'm telling them. But I don't really, this is not my expertise. I don't really know what I'm talking about. I'm just kind of I'm just saying whatever. Some of the stuff is right, some of the stuff is incorrect, and the information I'm putting out could actually kill you, right? In the political world, we have random people that are, gaining these large audiences who, it's not about them being wrong or right. Everyone's going to make mistakes, but, we're more talking about being unqualified. A qualified person making a mistake, okay, it's understandable. But a person who can't even comprehend what the word censor means, even after looking up the meaning, should this really be a person that is really having this large platform? And I'm not arguing for censorship. I'm just pointing out how problematic, independent media is. It's a very powerful thing. It's a very valuable thing. There's so much information you can find out through independent media that you wouldn't find out through corporate media, and that's certainly very valuable. However, just because of that doesn't mean that we should ignore the dark side of independent media, which is, people like this who, are just not qualified to be doing what they're doing, and yet having so much power to influence so many people. How many people watching this are going to realize, the incorrect information that's being said here? Now, the definition of the word censor versus censure, not the most consequential thing, right? But don't focus on this one thing. Focus on that this is a guy who is so inept that he can't even figure out what the word censor means, even looking at the definition. A person like that is not the person that you should be listening to, right? And if he made this mistake, how many other things is he fundamentally wrong on, right? And he really comes across to me as a guy who didn't do very well in school. Now, I could be totally wrong on that one, right? But this is the way he comes across. Didn't do very well in school. Has kind of a chip on his shoulder. People tell him, you're dumb or whatever it is, and you're not. Maybe his parents telling him stuff. You need to get a real job. You could be a doctor, lawyer, whatever it is. Like rejection. People, basically putting him down for his capabilities, right? And now, thanks to the world of YouTube and people like Tim Pool, here he is able to be on a platform like to speak to so many people. And no, censure. No, that's actually, you were wrong. I was right. No, that's not what it means. No, you see, society wants to tell you. Right. That's the thing about YouTube, right? Back in the day, someone like him would be stuck in a corner with his friends, spreading their misinformation amongst themselves, and other people just looking at them like, oh boy. But here in this world, the modern world, that crazy kid who was always so confident about stuff he didn't know anything about, that people just, the local people, they know they know what he's about. They just in one ear and out the other, don't really pay him any mind. But today, that guy now has a massive platform, millions of people listening. And the thing is, it's some random guy saying stuff doesn't have as much power as, he's on some big fancy show with all these views and subscribers. People looking at it, they think, he has sort of a, it's you've sort of given him a communication superpower, which he would not have had normally, right? And it's unfortunate. Now, this to some degree happens in mainstream media as well, because you have guys in suit and tie and they're on CNN and it looks all official, and some people get caught up in that, and unfortunately they also get misled and misinformed sometimes for various reasons, but not to the level that you see in independent media, right? As bad as mainstream media is, nothing compares to what you see in a lot of independent media channels like this. This is, what the definition shows as, right? An official, so this is censor, an official who examines materials that is about to be released, such as books, movies, news, and art, and suppresses any parts that are considered obscene. So that's actually interesting. So this actually, even in the definition of censor, because I said censor is going to approve things and disapprove other things, right? And the censor doesn't just strictly come in to like remove things, right? Or it's not going to remove everything that they come across, right? They're deciding whether to remove or not to remove. But even here in this definition, that considered, they also add in here and suppress it. So they're saying that is what they do. They suppress parts that are considered obscene. So you obviously can extrapolate from this that if they don't find things that are obscene, then they actually don't remove anything, right? Because if this is they have a qualifier to the statement, and suppresses any parts that are, and then they give you what parts. So if there's no parts that apply to that, then they won't remove anything. So obviously the censor is not going to always remove things, right? They only remove when they find things that meet these criteria. Now, if we dig a little deeper, so I don't know why reading that definition he would have said what he said, but if we dig a little deeper, we see a basic definition: a person who supervises conduct and morals, such as an official who examines materials such as publication of films for objectionable matter. So again, it's focused on the negative, right? An official, as in someone who reads communications, that's something different. So you have to wonder, what did he when he looked up the word censor on his computer, where did it take him? right? I'm not doing anything special. This is anyone searching for the definition. Well, I guess if you do it the way I do, I type in define and I type in the word. I mean, this is what you're going to see. Where in this do you get what he said? See another definition: to examine in order to suppress, right? Also, to suppress or delete as objectionable. So that's what I was looking for. So that's the verb, right? So the verb, if I'm censoring something, I'm removing it, right? I'm suppressing it, right? But the act of being a censor, you can actually look at something and choose not to censor it, the verb, right? You can, as a censor, the person, decide to not censor something, right? But anytime the censor actually censors, it's always removal. It's always suppression. That's what the word means. That's what censorship means. The institution, system, or practice of censoring. The action or practice of censors, especially censorial control exercised repressively. Exclusion from the consciousness by a psychic censor. Right, that's, I don't know what that is. I have to say, Marianne's comment about curation being neutral seems to be an absurd idea. I don't know why she would say something like that. Let's examine. So curation, the act or an instance of curating or selecting. I can't think of many situations where a selection is a neutral thing. I mean, I suppose you can purposely try to neutrally select, but generally speaking, selection by its nature is not a neutral thing, right? If a Black Lives Matter activist is trying to curate things for a community center, I don't think they're going to be neutrally selecting things that are contrary to their mission. Like, they're not going to be putting capitalistic images up unless mistakenly doing so, right? And if they do that, then there's going to be pushback. Vice versa. I don't think a far right-wing person setting up a community center is going to be putting up, sort of Black Lives Matter stuff, right? I don't think a sort of boxing club is going to be using a lot of pink colors or things that might be associated with femininity to put up in their decor. I think they're going to be not neutral and be very biased towards a very masculine theme, right? Curation is very, very close to censorship. It's just the fact that it's collaborative as opposed to the opposite. The act or an instance of selecting and organizing artistic works for presentation in an exhibit show. So I have a problem with what Marianne Williamson said herself in this, but more so a problem with the resident genius who, you're right and I'm wrong. Yeah, he was wrong on that one. I think she was correct in her saying, censure is that's the actual thing he was talking about when he made that statement about they. I don't remember exact words, but he talked about they looked at something and then they decided to allow it. That would be censure. This is the Debate Me channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Happy Hanukkah.